the best thing we can do is to, in fact, ensure that a portion of our species is on another planetary body when the inevitable destruction comes to the Earth. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So that's the best reason for going to other planetary bodies and forming bases and colonies, etc., to keep the human species survivable and intact. I think then you have to ask the question, well, what are the costs of that? So the next issue is, well, do we worry about the kind of environmental change we've, some would say, wreaked on this planet as a species, as a dominant species? And the question is, we should be very careful about that. On the other hand, you can imagine that to survive, carrying everything with us, bricks and mortar and all these other kind of things, might be more destructive than actually taking advantage of the environment that exists on the planet. So I think it's a really reasonable idea to say, how can we take organisms from the Earth to utilize in a way that can help us to do things on another planetary body that will minimize, not completely eradicate, but minimize the impact on that planet. So clearly, if our existence on the Earth is any indication, we're going to change the environment. The question is how much and at what cost. And I think it's an area we have to pursue if we're going to survive as a species. I think by the time we end up sending humans to Mars to really build colonies and use biological, synthetic biology and other mechanisms to produce things to use, that we will have probably resolved that question. It's a critical question. Contamination is a big problem, and we want to be very careful that we don't introduce just what we're looking for, because it's just as fundamental as what's the origin of life. If we go there to Mars and we find life, and we can't be sure that whether or not we introduced it or not, we've wasted the best laboratory for the study of the potential origin of life that we know in the solar system. So we want to be very careful about that. But we're proceeding a little bit at a time. It'll be a while before humans get there. Hopefully it'll be in your lifetime. Hopefully it'll be in my lifetime. But the key thing is that we're very careful about contamination now. We have very careful sterilization procedures for spacecraft that ultimately land on Mars, and hopefully that's minimizing the impact. As you know, as a biologist, there's no way, every year we're discovering organisms that can live in extreme environments that we would have said would be impossible. So it's impossible to actually completely sterilize spacecraft, but we hope we're minimizing that impact. And I think with those kinds of cautions, we're doing the best we can. Well, I think this is where we begin to diverge opinions. There are people who would say, well, we want to terraform Mars. We want to make Mars more like the Earth's atmosphere so that we don't have to do much to live in, we can live in more shirt sleeve kind of environments on Mars. And I think I would prefer to think about how we can coexist with the Martian environment and actually build habitats and other kinds of things where we don't actually alter the Martian environment more than we need to survive. It's a very much of a discussion crossroads, if you will, because many people will say, oh, we want to terraform it. And I think that's just, that's a lot of chutzpah, you just, first of all, we know on the Earth that there are people who say, well, we can figure out how to fix global warming. That scares the hell out of me, because people will say, well, we could alter fundamentally basic processes on the Earth to suit our needs. Typically when you do that, you basically pretty much screw it up. I mean, look at all the countless examples of people introducing species, alien species, to environments to fix something, to kill the rats, or to do this, that, or the other thing, and almost always they get it wrong. You know what I mean? So I worry about that a lot. I think our ability to deceive ourselves is much more efficient than the ability to fix these kinds of problems with human fixes. So it's just a personal opinion. Oh, I think so. I think, when you think about what can be done with synthetic biology, for example, I mean, even in the conceptual aspects of what, where you can actually engineer things to actually do simple tasks and things like that. It's just incredibly immense. I mean, it's just incredible. I think we have no idea the bounds of what can be done. I think that's the new vision of the future. So, you know, self-replicating parts in spacecraft, things where you can get some genetic control, but you're pretty sure it's not going to get out of control. All of these things are just, to me, just the wave of the future. You know, I think it's just, I think we have no idea of the promise there. You know, some people think it's really scary, and we have to be concerned about that. But to me, the promise is so fundamental that I think in 10 years, minimally 10 years, we'll be looking at a completely different world, completely different. And that's going to enhance space exploration. It's going to mean that we don't have to send humans to do things that we thought we had to before, but it's also going to enable humans to do what they do so well in terms of reasoning and exploration in ways that we've never thought about before. So I'm totally excited about that. Body in any meaningful way. And I can remember in high school when Sputnik was launched, it was like, oh my God, you know, oh my God. I looked up. I was a geologist, so I was looking at the ground. I looked up, and in just a few decades, you know, we're now like exploring the planets like you've never imagined before in your lifetime. And we're doing things, you know, we could see people on the surface of Mars with the cameras we have in orbit right now, okay? And it's just unbelievable. So if you take that and extrapolate it ahead, then it's very clear that we can only vaguely imagine what's going to happen in just 1 or 2 decades. So it's not about me telling you all what we need, it's about you and your imagination telling us where we need to go and how we can do it. It's just that simple. I mean, I would never be so presumptuous as to say, here's the list of what we need. It's up to your imagination to actually plot that out for us. And I think, you know, one of the things that was really interesting to me, I saw the movie Apollo. My first job was working in Apollo, astronaut training, site selection, mission operations, working with all the astronauts that went to the moon. And some decades later, I saw the movie Apollo 13. And I thought it was, of the space movies I've seen, one of the best examples of what it was kind of really like. So I was talking to one of the astronauts who went to the moon, Jack Schmitt, the geologist on Apollo 17. I said, so Jack, what did you think of that? He said, it was good, but the only thing, there was one fundamental thing wrong with it. I said, what was that? He said, everybody in the movie who was playing the roles as actors was too old. I said, what are you talking about? Well, Jim, remember, we were all in our 20s. I said, you're right. So if we can go to the moon in Apollo when we were in our 20s, imagine what you all can do.